and cards are pretty generic. Show your loved ones how much you care with a gift certificate to Hockey and Lacrosse Wolf. Hockey and Lacrosse Wolf has some absolutely killer season-ending deals on hockey gear that you have to see to believe, and the newest, latest, and greatest lacrosse gear is showing up just in time for the season, including a brand new line of New Balance Freeze cleats. Hockey and Lacrosse Wolf, it's for lovers. On the corner of Brooks and Fairview, next to Sign Pro.
There's a saying, opportunity never knocks twice. When you're ready to take advantage of your next opportunity, look to your local bank. Opportunity Bank of Montana. Opportunity Bank offers options for mortgage loans, small business loans, equipment financing, agriculture, and more. Our experienced team can provide solutions to help you welcome your next big opportunity. There's nothing like the feeling of progress. So let's get started today. Come see us at your local Opportunity Bank of Montana. OpportunityBank.com, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Here's to you, the intrepid explorers, driven doers, and off-road adrenaline addicts. Thanks for making Polaris America's best-selling off-road brand. It's time to celebrate with great deals on the world's biggest and best off-road lineup. Live life wide open in a high-performance RZR. Tackle anything from mountains to mud holes on a legendary Sportsman ATV. Get more done with a hard-working Ranger, or elevate your adventure in a versatile Polaris General. Now's the time to find your perfect ride. With financing as low as 3.99% APR for 36 months and savings up to $3,500 during the Polaris New Year's sales event at Kurtz Polaris, 2904 West Broadway in Missoula and Highway 83 in Sealy. The mountains are full of snow, and Kurtz has all the best machines, apparel, and accessories to take full advantage of the season. Online at KurtzPolaris.com, the most fun you can have in snow. Kurtz Polaris, winter awaits. Offers valid in U.S. through 2/29/20 on new 2016 through 2020 vehicles. Subject to credit approval. Offers vary by model. See dealer for details. Always wear a helmet. Never drink and ride.
Guys, you're not alone. Half of all men have erectile dysfunction. Don't wait for a little blue pill to kick in. Get your sex life back with Gainswave Therapy at New Health, Montana. Gainswave is a safe, 20-minute medical treatment that breaks up blockages and repairs blood vessels. Gainswave is simple, non-invasive, and available at New Health, Montana here in Missoula. For a limited time, you can receive 2 treatments free as part of our pilot program. Visit newhealthmontana.com to learn more.
Matcha is a versatile green tea chock full of health benefits. Here at Florence Coffee, our high-quality matcha is full of antioxidants, fiber, and chlorophyll, while providing rich, smooth flavor to any matcha drink. Whether you order your matcha hot, iced, or blended, it'll taste great and give your body the boost it needs. Come to any Florence Coffee location or go to florencecoffeeco.com.
Come into your local Fred's Appliance and see the full line of Bosch kitchen appliances.
Get hassle-free instant rebates up to $1,500 on Bosch kitchen packages.
See the new line of Bosch dishwashers at Fred's. Loaded with new features, you'll see why Bosch dishwashers are consistently top-rated.
Adjustable racks, including a third rack, and the quietest dishwashers on the market are some of the reasons people love their Bosch dishwasher.
The new Bosch French door refrigerator has features only found on refrigerators costing twice as much. Get up to a $1,500 instant rebate on Bosch packages. This is your chance to save big on new Bosch appliances. Bosch is known for quality, and at Fred's, we're proud of the huge selection of major appliances we have in stock and ready for pickup or delivery.
Need to finance? No problem. Pay no interest when paid in 12 months at Fred's Appliance. Fred's is always open Sunday, so we're there when you need us.
Fred's Appliance, 93 South, 5 minutes south of Brooks and Reserve.
Fred's Appliance. We sell appliances. Only appliances.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. It's 4 o'clock. Welcome to Tootell and Nuanez, Montana's only statewide sports talk show. Broadcast on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Western Montana and across the state on SWX Television.
I like football!
Now, sports talk from Montana for Montana. Live from the Kurtz Polaris studio, here is Ryan Tootell and Colter Nuanez.
Hello, Montana. Montana schools 4-0 yesterday in Big Sky Conference basketball. We have Our dear friend Carolyn, who doesn't know sports, going to join us today, and a plenty to get to into an all-star, NBA all-star weekend. It is Tootell and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. Outstanding to be with everybody around the state. And, hey, how about around the world? 1029ESPN.com. You can listen live on the stream. The stream available all the time thanks to Opportunity Bank. Your local bank, your opportunity. You can pick up your phone and call 329-1899. All guests join us via the Rankage Brothers RV phone line. Let's take a look at what we got in the show today. We'll spend some time with the Grizzlies' domination of Weber State last night. Jarek Harding did not play in that basketball game. I don't know that it would have made a difference. It would have made a difference. I don't know that it would have made a difference in the outcome of the basketball game had he been there. But we will get into that significantly. But they weren't the only ones. Both the Montana State women won, and the Montana State men Bobcats, they held on as well for a 4-point victory at the Brick last night over Idaho State. So we'll get that you doesn't know sports. We will talk to her a little bit as well in the next hour. Looking forward to this. An interview with Butte native and former Major League Baseball catcher, primarily with the Mariners, but he was with the Padres. He was in a couple different organizations, the St. Louis Cardinals as well, which we will certainly forgive him that offense. Rob Johnson going to join us. So we will have Rob Johnson here. If you were a Mariners fan in the mid-aughts, he was an everyday type of catcher for the Seattle Mariners for a couple of years. So a great guy from Butte, Montana. How about that? Grew up, went to Butte Central High School. So we want to talk to him about pitchers and catchers and roots in the state of Montana and all that. So we'll get to that. So there you go. That is our show today. We also have some giveaways for you. Happy Valentine's Day, people. We'll give you a little bit of Dobie's teriyaki, among other things, today. So there you go. That is the show. Before we go any further, we want to go ahead and get ourselves sorted out with a little Florence Coffee Company coffee break. Now, I have changed it up significantly today. My normal order is just espresso with a little espresso mixed in there. That's kind of usually what I go for at Florence. Today, though, Coulter, it's Valentine's Day. I thought I'd get a little sweet. How about an Italian soda? What is the last time you had an Italian soda, Coulter?
Back when the old school Zimmerino's was still open downtown.
When I was in high school, Big Sky High School, I think going into like my sophomore or junior year is when they introduced the first coffee cart into Big thing, or if you had, they hook it up, you know what I mean? And
espionage on the
break. Coulter, last night in Missoula was, I guess, much ado about nothing. Not quite nothing, but it was a big buildup to not a lot of payoff, primarily hinging on the fact that you and I were both sitting there. They roll the ball out there. The starters take off their warm-ups, and number 10 is not walking out onto the floor for Weber State, that being Jarek Harding, who we spent quite a bit of time actually yesterday sort of singing the praises of and building the excitement for both of us on watching him play, in person once again, and then did not get that opportunity. We talked with Randy Ray, the head coach of Weber State, after the game, talked about the fact that this was injury-related. He said this is something that they've been building up to for a while. He had a bad ankle. he
broke his foot initially.
Yeah, he broke his foot, right?
Got re-sprained
got
that
back
ankle.
and sort of has been playing through it, but the stress kind of gave him some shin splints, and then he's asymmetric, running around, fighting through it, playing a bunch of minutes. 37, 38 minutes of the game.
About 38 minutes a game in
and
conference
now
play.
His back is not what it needs to be, and it's just sort of a preponderance of physical issues. But he ends up not playing. Meanwhile, the Montana Grizzlies had clearly circled, highlighted, and circled again this basketball game where they were going to send a message. First of all, I don't think Travis Akira has been happy with the defense in general that Montana has been playing in terms of he pays very much attention to how much above or below the average of their opponent do they hold the other team. And recently, they've been giving it up in terms of points. I don't know if they've been playing quote-unquote bad defense, but
on the show that we can guard some of the best players, because a lot of guys been having good performances on us, and we're not having that anymore.
When he talks about Jarek Harding making history, that he passed Damian Lillard on Weaver's all-time scoring list that night. I know that's something that probably stuck in the craw of Syed Pridgett more than anybody, because Syed Pridgett's from the Bay Area, so is Damian Lillard. If you noticed after the game, we interviewed Randy Ray after he got done with the Weber State in-house interview, and he was great, as he always is. But then he stayed on the court and he talked for a while to a gentleman that was in Montana gear. Well, I put two and two together. That was Syed Pridgett's dad. We talked to Syed for a while after the game, off the record too, and he was saying, I said, was it good to show out in front of your pops, 25 points in front of your old man? He's like, oh, man, my dad never told me I had a good game. But nothing's ever good enough for him. Well, he said, my choice in college came down to Montana and Weber State, and Coach Ray and my family are really close still, and my dad and him are still friends. Yeah. And so I think that Syed Pridgett had something a little extra too. When you talk about Montana's defense, Timmy Falls is always going to be the head of the snake. The difference is it's so much of it's their backgrounds, right? Holland Woods has like the street baller in him. And sometimes when he's allowed to improvise, which a lot of times when they play Montana, he is, and that's why he looks so flossy and so sweet, so fun to watch. Harold Frey's a pro. That's where Harold Frey is better than everybody else in the league in terms of being able to consistently produce with the amount of basketball he plays year-round, because he plays on the Norway national team. He plays in the FIBA World Games. He's playing more hoops than almost anybody in terms of actual games in the league. So it's an interesting analysis because you know me, I love Harold Frey. He's one of my favorite players.
Yes, I do.
I've ever covered. I love him. But I just think that what I always say, basketball is about getting buckets. And when Holland Woods is really sizzling, he's got it cooking. I mean, who in the league can actually drop 40? Him and Jarek Harding?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple guys that could get it going.
Saeed Pridgett's not going to drop 40 just because he doesn't shoot threes and he's not that great of a free throw shooter. He'll drop 28 all day, but who can actually go off for 40? Mm-hmm. Those three guys, the guys we're talking about, Jarek Harding, Harold Frey, and Holland Woods.
Trayvon Allen.
Oh, and Trayvon Allen, yeah.
Here's one thing, and this is a good spot by David Graff in the back, but Northern Arizona just got pounded by Northern Colorado. But we sort of glazed over the fact that Northern Colorado lost on Monday to Portland State. Portland State went to Greeley and beat who was then tied, I guess, for the number 2 team in the Big Sky Conference, and dropped them to 9-4, which is why they're not by themselves in second place right now. And that moved Portland State, by the way, to 6-7. So they're only a game behind both the Bobcats and Thunderbirds, with NAU now at 7-7 in between the two of them. But again, Portland State has been sort of that, don't forget about the Vikings, looking over your shoulder team. And they proved it by beating on the home floor one of the better teams in this conference. And so the last 2 games out, Northern Colorado and Eastern Washington both lost. Well, UNC obviously getting the win last night, but on Monday. So those are significant when you talk about the standings in general.
Portland State is just so funny because when you look at them, when you look at their roster, you look at who they got, and then you look at the games that they've won and lost, it just shows you how much more mental it is than anything else. Also, the schedule has been weird for them early on, like we've talked about extensively, and they had the injuries. Sal Nuhu was out for a little while. Their shooter, the kid from Santa Clara, Matt Hauser, was out for a little while. But, I mean, when you break this thing down, one of their conference losses is to Idaho. That's perplexing. Then they beat Montana State at the Horn. They got blown out by the Grizz. But then they blew out Weber State in Ogden. They've lost to Sac State, lost to NAU, and then beat Montana the very next game.
And now Northern Colorado.
They lost by almost 30 to Southern Utah and then beat Northern Colorado. So it's almost as if they played their best. It's not almost as if. It is a fact. They played their best against the best teams.
Tootell, Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Coulter, one thing you wanted to talk about here was where we at when it comes to conference MVP, best player in the Big Sky right now. I said going into last night's game that as of yesterday, my nomination for conference MVP was Jarek Harding. As of today, it is now Saeed Pridgett. And, it is what it is, but if you can't play, if you end up injured, and Jarek Harding, I was taking this strictly from conference play because in the non-conference, he was very much injured and recovering, and then put it all together. But it feels to me, based on our conversation with Randy Ray last night, like this is not something that's just simply going to resolve itself with time if he keeps playing.
Right.
And he didn't play last night. I guess it's a coin flip, whatever, whether he'll play tomorrow.
I bet you he.
My guess is
I don't know. I bet you he doesn't.
My guess is he doesn't play too. I think.
And at some point, you're going to reach the point of no return.
Right,
if you're Weber.
Try and get all the way as healthy as you can and just put it together.
Like if you lose 2 more league games and you have 10 league losses.
I mean, Weber's 6-8, man, and they're not out of it. And by the way, playing another team who's in that 4th spot, it's a huge game for Weber just to stay relevant for the last 5 games of the season. But
if he can go, then you let him roll tomorrow and you just go all out to try to win that game, because then you have a banked win. But they just have to manage it because if and when they get to 10 losses, if he's not available then maybe you shut him down until he's truly healthy and then try to make a run in the tournament. Because at the end of if you can't get the seed, then it's just a wash with how even everybody that's not going to get a seed is. But it's not a wash if you don't have him. If you don't have him, you're the worst team in the league.
So here's the list for you. Saeed Pridgett is averaging 19.6 points per game, over 7 rebounds, and 3.5 assists. Holland Woods is at 17.3 points per game, 2.5 rebounds, but 5 assists, over 5 assists, in fact. Jarek Harding, as we mentioned, 22.8 points a game, 2.8 rebounds, 2 assists. And then Jonah Radabaugh, 15.5 points, 6.5 rebounds, 6.4 assists, and the most tenacious D that the conference has to offer.
Yeah.
That didn't even include Harold Frey, by the way, in that mix, who at this point is not in the conversation anyways for conference MVP, in my opinion.
I don't think Holland Woods is either.
I think
Holland Woods is too inconsistent.
Great. So you would say Saeed, Jarek Harding, and Jonah Radabaugh are
I think it's 2-horse race. I think it's Saeed Pridgett and Jonah Radabaugh.
Okay.
Because of their intangibles, their leadership ability, and the confidence that they play with.
We have not had a chance yet to watch Northern Colorado play in person. They will play on, are you ready for this, Tuesday in Missoula, the last week of the regular season.
That's real?
Yeah. I believe it's a Tuesday game. We'll look it up and confirm it, but I was looking at this earlier today, and it's very, very bizarre what I saw. So
how? The conference tournament starts.
No.
Northern Colorado plays in Missoula on Thursday.
Okay, well,
Thursday, March 5th.
Let me take a look at a couple other things that I got over there. In any case, it's
there's never been a Tuesday game in the league.
Second to last game of the regular season, which also, depending on how things shake up, could be a very meaningful game or it could be actually not very meaningful game, all things considered. We hope it's the former, right? And that there's something on this line. And obviously, the Grizzlies did lose in Greeley, and so you'd think that in any case, that's going to be the last, great matchup in terms of two of the top teams going up against each other in Missoula. Right now, though, for me, and look, we're in Montana, we're in Missoula, we see Montana State play more than anybody else. It is what it is. You and I love Jonah Radabaugh. It to me at this point is Saeed Pridgett.
Absolutely, and what did I say earlier? The hardest thing in basketball is giving your absolute top effort every time out. And again, I don't think that's possible. So then it's all about giving your absolute top effort when it matters the most.
Yeah.
And the thing that Saeed Pridgett has evolved into, Saeed Pridgett used to just be get the ball, score the ball. And oftentimes I think you could pin him as a little bit of a ball stopper, a little bit of a ball hog. He was so ridiculously efficient last year that you couldn't have any gripe with it because he was getting like 18 points per game on like 11 shots. I mean, he had multiple 9 of 11s, 10 of 12s where he's just so efficient getting to the rim. That said, Saeed Pridgett has evolved. I think he's evolved and developed and grown more pleasantly than any player I can really think of for the Grizz. He found a way to fit in and, quite frankly, be among the best players on the floor, even with a stacked roster the last 2 years. I mean, don't forget, Saeed Pridgett was a first-team All-League player last year.
Right.
Saeed Pridgett and Ahmad Rory, not Michael Ogine, not Jamarico, not Bobby Moorhead. It was Saeed Pridgett on that team. But there was an element of when he got the ball, everybody else was just kind of standing around and watching because he's so hard to guard one-on-one.
No doubt.
But the way that he's evolved as a leader, as a facilitator, as a guy that can just not only is he averaging 19.6 points per game, but we see it consistently now in league play. He takes over when they need him the most. He turns a 4-point lead into a 12-point lead. Last night he scored 15 out of 18 points to bookend the halves. He scored 8 straight at the end of the first half to help Montana really push the lead and have Weber absolutely on the ropes. They threw the knockout punch, knocked him over the ropes by scoring 7 out of the first 10 of the second half, too. He turns it on when he absolutely needs to, but also his ability to read defenses has become absolutely elite. I mean, we talked to him about it. Weaver decided to go one-on-one with him. Okay, well, he just feasted. He made 11 field goals last night, all against one-on-one coverage. But when teams decide to trap him or double him, he's also one of, if not the best passers in the entire league, with the exception of the guys who have the ball in their hands all the time. He can play the point on one position, the wing on the next possession, and the post on the next possession. His defense has gotten better. I just think that he is a phenomenal story of a guy who really had to bite the bullet and buy in for 2 years. He got his chance because of an injury with Jamar Coe last year to really be a go-to guy, but he still had to default from a leadership perspective to all the rest of those guys. And now that it's his team, I mean, he's honestly rapidly rising on all the records. And I mean, his reputation and his legacy as a Grizz has increased as much as anybody I've seen in this program.
No question. I think, too, I don't know if I can make this analogy very well, but I'll try. If you move someplace that's very different, whether it's a different country or just a different region of the country, maybe someplace, once you get there, you spend some time, and you're clearly a fish out of water. I mean, what happens when I go to New York City? People are like, oh, you're not from here. How do you know? I mean, is it the flannel? I don't know. So you sort of, and then over the course of time, you start to figure out the flow of life and the way things go, and you kind of get it a little bit. And so now you sort of integrate into the culture and into the place that you are and all that kind of stuff. But yet you're still not from there. You know what I mean? You're living there. You're kind of living that life. You get it all, but you're not really from there. And then at some point, once you are at a place long enough, I mean, this happens in Montana all the time. People not from Montana moving to Montana because they love it, and then all of a sudden they look up, they've been here 20 years. They go, well, I guess I'm a Montanan now. You know, I guess that's just what I am. That's how I identify myself, is this. Saeed Pridgett coming to Missoula to play basketball in terms of him as in all of the things that go into playing basketball, going to the University of Montana, but the on-the-floor stuff and the teammate, off-the-floor roles that you have and everything like that, felt like, and this is for a lot of guys, of course, you get there, you try and get used to it, you try and learn it, you try and figure it out, and then at some point you find your role. But then at some point, some guys ascend to a point where they actually just are that thing. You know, they're not just a part of this that they've sort of worked their way into, but they are in fact creating the cultural identity, if you will, of a basketball team. And he is doing that now with this team this season. And I think that's really impressive because a lot of guys don't get to that place in it.
I think the other reason why he's going to win the MVP is because everybody else in the league thinks he's the best player in the league. I mean, on this show, Randy Ray and Barrett Peary, Portland State's head coach, has said straight up he's the best player in the conference. Yeah. Danny Sprinkle said it after the Cat Grizz game, too. Yeah. So there's three guys that are probably going to vote for him if Montana wins the league. He's the best player on the best team, and he's also playing exceptionally well. One side note. Yeah. We mentioned the statistic that the 37 points Montana allowed last night was the lowest total in a conference game since 1976. Yeah. Thank you, Twitter, for this. Okay. This is courtesy of Nick Hallisey, by way of Nick Hallisey Sports Information Montana, by way of Jordan Hansen, who's covering Grizz basketball for the Missoulian. This is a news clipping. So Montana, when they gave up 25 points in 1976, the lowest conference total in program history, they lost. No. I'm going to read this. This AP thing is only 3 blurbs. This is hilarious. All right. Idaho State guard Eddie Thompson sanked 2 free throws as time expired to give the Bengals a 25-23 win over the Montana Grizzlies in a bizarre Big Sky basketball game in Idaho Falls on Friday night. Thompson's shot on a foul at the buzzer came after Tim Stabaugh had fired a 17-foot basket with 5 seconds remaining, and the score still tied at 23. Grizzlies put the ball in deep freeze throughout the entire game, even though they trailed for most of the time. In a stretch of nearly 12 minutes in the second half, Montana took one shot, a 16-foot make by Michael R. Richardson, which he hit with 1 minute and 54 seconds remaining. So the Grizz lost a game that they got 25 points.
Obviously, pre-shot clock era, they decided we're going to sit on this thing.
I mean, how mad would you be if you went to that game?
Pretty mad.
Just organized, keep away.
It's Tootell, Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. We'll take a break. On the other side, Rob Johnson, former Seattle Mariner, as well as Padre, as well as St. Louis Cardinal, but most of his MLB career with the Mariners was a 41st and then an 18th and then a 4th-round draft pick. That's right. It was drafted 3 different times in Major League Baseball. He's from Butte, Montana, so we'll talk with Rob Johnson right after this. Hey, the Polaris New Year's sales event is on, and now is the time to find your perfect ride at Kurtz Polaris with financing as low as 3.99% APR for 36 months and savings of up to $3,500. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula and Highway 83 in Sealy. The mountains are full of snow, and Kurtz has all the best machines, accessories, and apparel to take full advantage of the season. Online at KurtzPolaris.com. The most fun you can have in snow, Kurtz Polaris. Winter awaits.
In Western Montana, we know shopping local matters, and you may think you'd pay more for the quality and customer service that comes with it, but not at Selway Armory. Selway Armory is locally owned with knowledgeable specialists that can answer your questions. In addition to the expertise, though, Selway Armory also has a bigger selection and lower prices than the box stores. When you're in the market for firearms and accessories, save money with the experts at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit E6, and online at selwayarmory.com.
Hey, it's Coulter, and I'm here with Catherine from The Advocates. If you've been in a car accident or need help dealing with the insurance companies, you should give The Advocates a call. They can tell you if you have a case right over the phone.
That's right. It doesn't cost anything to call, and we'd be happy to talk to you and assess your situation. You don't want to have to deal with contacting the insurance companies and setting up a claim. We can do that for you. We take the hassle out of the process, so you can just focus on getting better.
There you go, folks. If you've been injured in an accident, give The Advocates a call, 406-640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com. You deserve The Advocates.
Bob Ward's winter clearance progressive sale is now at final markdown. Take an extra 40% off the lowest price on select merchandise. That's right, Bob Ward's progressive winter clearance sale is now at final markdowns of 40% off. You won't find better deals on select current season gear. Save an extra 40% off the lowest price now during the progressive sale at Bob Ward's Sports and Outdoors. Limited to stock on hand.
The Missoulian Angler would like to announce a fundraiser on Saturday, April 4th at 4 p.m. for Trout Unlimited's Upper Clark Fork restoration projects, and they're asking you to help launch their first annual Clark Fork Squala Fest with a bang. The event at the Missoulian Angler Fly Shop is dedicated to help improve fish populations and habitat in the Upper Clark Fork River watershed. Trout Unlimited's plan is a multi-pronged program that focuses on protecting and restoring cold, clean water and habitat to the river and its tributaries. Fish on, Montana.
Brian, do you remember TRL?
Total Request Live. Wouldn't miss it.
Do you remember the moment in American history where it shifted that heavy metal became pop music?
Yes, I do. I was on the forefront of that choice.
As was Korn. And guess what? 20 years later, Korn is coming to Missoula.
The thing I like about Korn is that it's not merely nostalgia. They've reinvented themselves time and again, have just put out yet another new record. Prolific band and managed to maintain relevance over multiple decades, which most cannot say.
You and I will both be attending the Korn concert, and we're going to hook up a bunch of you as well. Tune in to Tootell Nuanez 4 to 6 every single weekday for your chance to win a pair of tickets to Korn at the Adams Center on Sunday, February 23rd.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good evening, Ryan Tootell, Colton Nuanez. Here's some sports news for you. The Treasure State swept its Big Sky Conference basketball slate Thursday night. For the Montana men, they took full advantage of Weber State scratching senior Jarek Harding from the starting lineup just minutes before tip on Thursday. The Grizzlies used a smothering defense and a focused play of senior Syed Pridgett and Kendall Manuel to destroy Weber, posting a 72-37 win in Dahlberg Arena. The 37 points is the lowest the Grizz have allowed since 2010 and the lowest point total for UM opponents in a Big Sky game since 1976.
Pridgett scored 25, Manuel scored 21, and the Grizz moved to 11-3 in Big Sky Conference play. The victory, coupled with Eastern Washington's 74-71 home loss to last place Idaho, means the Grizzlies are 1.5 games up on EWU for first place in the standings, including 2 games clear of the Eagles in the win column.
The Montana State women remain the hottest team in the league by going on the road and ripping previously surging Idaho State 74-55. The win is the 8th straight for the Bobcats, who had 6 players score in double figures as the squad moved to 12-1 in conference play.
And finally, Lady Grizz won for the 5th time in 6 outings to move to 9-5 in league play with a 78-46 win at Weber State. And the Montana State men, they're 7-6 in league play after holding on for a 73-69 home win over Idaho State.
And catchers reporting Major League Baseball. So let's talk to a catcher, specifically Rob Johnson. I will tell you, Rob had to go a little earlier in the day with us, and Coulter could not be there for it. So it's just my conversation with him. But Rob Johnson, a Butte native, went to Butte Central High School and played baseball for a number of big league teams, but primarily for the Seattle Mariners. And really enjoyed the conversation with him. It is Tootell Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television, at 102.9 ESPN, at 102.9 ESPN on Twitter and Instagram. So go listen there, or listen. I guess you can listen, look, watch, read, do whatever, retweet, follow along. Also at Gus Tootell and at Skyline Sports MT on Twitter as well. All right, here you go. We head now to the Reagans Brothers RV phone line, and we welcome in a longtime Major League Baseball catcher who played with a number of franchises, primarily the Seattle Mariners. But who cares about all that, because he's a Butte Central High grad. That's the most important thing. Rob Johnson joining us. Rob, thanks so much for being with us. How are you?
I'm doing well, Ryan. How are y'all doing? I'm certainly happy to be online.
Well, we're happy to have you here. We appreciate you taking the time out very much. I understand you make your home in Austin, Texas now. You've been there for a number of years coaching baseball, and so that's fantastic. But it all started for you in Montana, right, going to Butte Central and being a Butte guy. This is so interesting because for all the sports that get played in Montana, baseball sometimes goes under the radar. It doesn't even exist in the high schools here. What was it like for you playing baseball, being a great baseball player in the state of Montana?
Yeah, I've lived here in Texas now for 9-10 years. It's really interesting because places like Texas, big states, California, Florida, sports are a big deal, but kids tend to only play one sport, maybe two. And so growing up in Montana, I talk about it all the time, how awesome it was to be able to play football and basketball and track, and I even did golf my freshman, sophomore year, and then play baseball in the summer. And so for me, it was really kind of a relief. And then, you start talking to college coaches in the job that I have now, and, they really like multi-sport athletes, and it's kind of going away. And so to me, I feel like I was really, really fortunate just to play all the sports, but baseball is one of those games. I just loved it. I had some offers in different sports from some universities, and I just wanted to pursue baseball, and so I ended up walking on to a junior college instead of taking a scholarship. So my experience was awesome. I had great coaches, great teammates. Obviously, everybody in Montana, pretty much everybody in town, so it's always supportive. And my time was great growing up there.
And like you said, you after high school, you decided to walk on. You went to Saddleback Community College. What was it about Saddleback specifically that got that connection for you? How'd you get lined up with them?
Yeah, that's an interesting and long story. I'll try to definitely keep it short. But there was, I went to one camp. Actually, I'll scoot back a little bit. Montana, I don't know if they do anymore, but our state tournament was in Lethbridge, Canada, which is interesting in and of itself. And there was one scout up there, and he gave me this pamphlet, man, you should try going to one of these camps. And so I saved up money, I worked, and I went down to a camp in Arizona. I met the guy that was working with the catchers. There was 9 catchers there. I can still see it clear as a bell, and I was by far the worst, not even close to anybody. And I met this guy who happened to be playing AAA baseball. And so over about a 9-month period, I would stay in contact with him weekly, and I would pay him a fee, and he would send me video of himself, like how to do it. And then me and my dad would go up to the the gym, and we'd work on it, and then he'd get, film me. We'd send it back and forth. Well, he ended up playing at this junior college, and so when before I actually went and visited the college, I made a trip down to California, and I worked with him for about a week, and he's like, all right, man, I think you're ready. And so we went and I introduced myself to the head coach, and he was a big piece on being able to even get on that team and in that college. So then the rest, just kind of took off from there.
Well, that's so interesting. Yes, the mighty Lethbridge Elks, if I'm not mistaken, right up there in right. Alberta. So very good. Well, and this is one thing that's so interesting to me, Rob, is that in baseball you can get drafted like multiple times. Like you could be in there initially, and then you keep going in college, you get drafted again. And you were drafted like 3 different times, right? Throughout
that is correct.
The course of your Saddleback and then University of Houston days, and you went from the 41st round the first time to the 4th round by the Seattle Mariners in 2004. What was that like for those 3 years to see your stock rising up to a point where you're a high round draft pick?
Yeah, well, it kind of goes back to the ideology of playing a ton of different sports in Montana. I think that it made me really versatile, but it didn't really make me skill specific. And baseball is such a skill specific. And so over the next 3 years, being around people that eat, sleep, and breathe baseball. With the development of me as a player, I think I was athletic, but I didn't have some of the tools that I needed in order to grow as a baseball player. And so being around those guys continuously and around the other athletes to help grow as a player was a big deal. And I think over the course of those years, it started to refine more, if that makes sense. And so it was awesome. I'll be honest with you. The first year I was drafted, it was back then when they had draft and follow, and I was super excited. I was like, holy smokes. And then I had a pretty good year my second year, and I got called in earlier rounds, and I told them that I would not sign. And then they ended up drafting me, trying to sign me again as another draft and follow. And then the coolest thing was actually having my dad, and this was back when they didn't have it live or anything, and me and my dad were sitting down in my apartment complex in Houston listening to the draft, and they called my name in a pretty high round, and man, it was really neat, and I'll cherish that forever. Just me and my dad just hanging out, listening to the MLB draft, see if I get picked. It was pretty cool.
What a moment, man! With you and your dad just sitting there. Were you listening like on the radio or on the internet or something like that, or how?
Yes, yeah, exactly. We were on the internet in the actually business center of the apartment complex, and so. Obviously they yelled my name. My dad and I are hooting and hollering, and they're trying to make a sale on an apartment. So it was pretty neat. It was pretty funny.
That's amazing. Rob Johnson joining us, longtime Major League Baseball catcher from Butte, America. Here, one reason, Rob, we wanted to do this right now is because pitchers and catchers have just reported to spring training in Major League Baseball, and I'm always wondering, what is it that the pitchers and catchers are up to? I mean, I guess on one hand, it seems pretty obvious, right? Throwing. But, when you get there with just that group before everybody else descends upon spring training or whatever it might be, what is that space like?
Yeah, I mean, for the pitchers, it's really great. They start getting a little bit lengthened out. You get on a pitching regimen, you throw a ton of bullpens. So it's actually really good away from the position players where they can just focus on their craft for, about a week and kind of get in the swing of things. They need to get there a little bit earlier because then the games start. For catchers, transparently, it's brutal because there's like 70 pitchers and 5 catchers. And so you're catching bullpens for like 5 hours straight. It's yeah. And then at the end of catching bullpens, they say, oh, you guys want to hit. And nobody can hit the ball at the infield because your legs are like jello. So it's just awesome for catchers.
I mean, I just can't even. Go ahead.
It's not quite that bad, but spring training for catchers for anybody that has been in that situation, it's grueling, man. I mean, there's lots of ice tubs after a day for a catcher in spring training for sure.
I want to get to a couple things in your professional career. First of all, the fact that you just mashed Ben Sheets all day long. I mean, just had his number, quarter of your career homers off of Ben Sheets, including 2010 opening day. What do you remember about that? I mean, how great to hit an opening day home run, right?
It was cool, man. I'll never forget that. You know, I'd worked that off season with a guy by the name of Paul Konerko, who's a Chicago White Sox guy, Hall of Fame guy.
Oh, yeah.
Man, we worked, and you know, to swing and hit a ball like that in your first at bat was really, really exciting. What was even more exciting about it was that was the year that I ended up having my hip surgeries. The year before, in November, I had double hip surgery, and so I didn't get very many at bats in spring training. I was obviously working on my swing, but I didn't get a lot of live at bats because they didn't want me to run quite yet. And so I think that was probably my 15th or 16th at bat, live at bat. And so to do it on opening day was pretty neat. I think that's the first time I've ever been on the leaderboard for home runs in the MLB. So right. I'll take it.
Rob, last thing I just wanted to kind of touch on here. A lot of guys who grow up and end up going into professional sports or whatever sometimes come from the urban centers or higher dense populations and are playing with guys who are, you know, also a high-level, you know, competition and so forth. For you coming from Butte, I mean, there's not many professional athletes, period, from Montana, and especially baseball players. When you make it to the show and you are, you know, playing Major League Baseball, what was that like? Was that sort of an entry into a whole nother dimension?
You know what? I'll be honest with you. Montana to Southern California was a huge reality check for me. Yeah. And then going to Southern California, you know, like you're in Mission Viejo, Laguna Beach, Newport Beach, and then you're going to inner city Houston. Like, that was another huge adjustment, you know, and like these three opposite spectrums.
Right, Seattle's so much more like Butte than Butte is like inner city Houston, right?
That's exactly right. And then, you know, you get into professional baseball, and I guess, like, for me growing up, I didn't realize there was that many Latino players. And so then you have that culture, and then so you got all these different cultures that are mixed, right? And it was good for me to have those type of experiences in college, just to kind of get used to it, because there can be shell shock. You know, you see kids come from different areas of the country, and they know nothing different, especially if they're just high school kids, and they kind of get in there, and you can tell they're like, whoa, what's going on, you know, and it's a little uncomfortable, and there's some transition time. But, man, I love learning about other cultures. I loved, you know, the camaraderie with the guys. I loved the locker room banter, and just being able to compete on a level that is really, really, really high, and mistakes are very, very, very minimal. And to be around some of the best players that have ever played the game, and guys like King Griffey and Ichiro Suzuki, and even like guys like Adam Wainwright and Chris Carpenter with the Cardinals, and, you know, all these guys, and just to see how they function, how they go about their day-to-day work, and their preparation in order to play at that level and stay at that level. So really competing at that level is the biggest thing that I miss. Like, man, you're playing against the best in the world, and that's pretty humbling opportunity to say that you're in that crowd with them.
You know, and along those lines, you caught, among many others, Felix Hernandez, right? And that's early in his career. But this was a guy who was, I mean, I remember Felix, you know, as a 19-year-old kid just slinging it. What did you know right away? Wow, this guy, he's different.
Oh, yeah, yes. So amongst baseball players, there's about 5% of guys that you're just like, man, how did they get to the big leagues? They just work harder or smarter than everybody. And then there's about 90% of us that are just pretty normal. And then there's the 5% that are just freak shows, like better than everybody. And he would fall in that category. Like, he doesn't even know what he does. He just gets up there and chunks it, and it's nasty and hard and moves a lot.
Well, that's like me, but it has nothing to do with my baseball. You know, that's you described maybe my physical state. Rob, hey, thanks so much for being with us, man. We really appreciate it. It's been fun to talk with you, catch up with you, and we wish you the best down in Austin and continuing coaching baseball down there, all right?
I appreciate it. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Rob Johnson, professional baseball catcher, good stories, and a Butte guy, of course.
Great interview, Ryan. I'm sad I had to miss it.
Well, these things happen. It's okay. We can't all just choose the times that we get to be wherever we want all the time. Sometimes we got to be places. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. Friday, it's the 2-minute mashup. And I will explain my justification for thinking the Grizzlies had a game on a Tuesday next.
Hi there, it's Les Schwab Alignment and Brakes and Shocks and Wheels and Tires. Some tire places don't offer all that, but we do to help keep you safe. It's our Les Schwab Founders Celebration. Get $50 off an alignment. That's nearly half off regular price when you purchase 4 Reputation or Open Range AT tires all month long. Les Schwab Tires, doing the right thing since 1952. Limited time offer while supplies last. Cannot be combined with other offers. Details at leschwab.com.
You hear the term small business all the time, but what does it mean? The answer is, it depends. Whether you're a one-woman show or employ over 100 people, at Farmer State Bank, your business is never small to us. Find the tools for success at any Farmer State Bank location or check us out online at farmersebank.com. Farmer State Bank, helping businesses succeed since 1907. Member FDIC.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
Hey folks, Grizz Greats, the Coaching Tree podcast has been a wonderful podcast series that we're happy to have been a part of, and it reaches its halfway point now. Episode 5 with Don Holst, available wherever you get your podcasts. Just search Grizz Greats in your favorite podcasting platform and it will be there for you. And Coulter, our conversation with Don Holst, an intriguing and memorable one.
Every single one of these episodes has been entertaining, historical, funny, informative, but this one was the most revelatory. Don Holst talks in detail about his 4 years as the head coach of the University of Montana, his trip to the NCAA tournament in his final season, and his subsequent dismissal following that trip to the Big Dance. Fascinating to hear Don Holst's take on how it all went down about 20 years ago.
The Grizz Greats podcast series is brought to us by Blackfoot Communications, the company that connects you more. Mike Nugent and the Bryan team at Berkshire Hathaway Real Estate and Stockman's Bar on Front Street downtown, proud supporters of Montana basketball for more than 50 years.
Turn your whiskers into wishes. Make-A-Wish Montana is holding their annual No Razor fundraiser. 60 Montana children with critical illnesses are waiting for their one true wish to be granted. Your magnificent mane can help raise money that can help kids that have a wish and desperately need for that wish to come true. Fun, easy, and for the kids. There will be prizes for top fundraisers, events throughout the state, and one fuzzy contestant will walk home as the best beard in Montana. Register your beard, real or fake, at montanabeardies.com. Beard on, Montana.
If it matters to Missoula, it matters to us. Ryan Tootell and Coulter Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio.
The weekend is here, Coulter. Hey, Coulter.
Ryan.
You happy that the weekend's here?
It's all the same. It's like
just text it away.
It's like I told you. Tuesdays.
Yeah. Every day's a Tuesday?
No. Tuesday is my day that I can actually do some stuff.
By the way, speaking of Tuesday, I said earlier the Grizz play on a Tuesday. I said the last game of the regular season was at home on a Tuesday. It is not. It is a Thursday. It is March 5th. The reason, though, and I second-guessed myself, but the reason I said that on the radio, we have our season tickets, that we give away and so forth. And I looked at the next tickets because after tomorrow, that's the last home games home game for the men until the last weekend of the season. It says Tuesday on the ticket. I showed you, did I not? Tuesday, March 5th it says, but it's not a Tuesday. It's a Thursday. By the way, the women, the Lady Grizz, play on the Wednesday and Friday. That is confirmed because they get done early because their tournament starts early the next week in Boise. So there you go. Tootell, Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. If you missed anything in the show today, check it out on the podcast. The podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen all the time. And it is available thanks to the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel and Blackfoot Communications. Just check out the Tootell Nuanez podcast. Of course, listen to the Grizz Greats Coaching Tree podcast as well. Wherever you get your podcasts, you search Grizz Greats, you can go listen to that. It's Friday. We like to have a little fun around here. Are you ready for this 2-minute mashup? Who you think? Am I going to get raked over the coals, or are you?
Oh, it's always me.
Well, I sure hope that continues to be the case. Here you go, boys and girls. Friday, what happened in the week? Here you go in 2 minutes.
It's the ultimate, we only care about ourselves.
Hello, Montana.
Ken Palm had them at 41% of games decided by 4 points or less, the highest percentage in the entire country.
That's huge.
Basically don't care.
Montana Grizzlies got an 82-70 win.
Oh, wow.
You ever seen the one with the dog?
Montana State has the feeling of a really, really special team because they're the type of team that they can win even when they don't play well. They can win even when certain players don't play well, or they can win even when certain players. It's not even as if Fallon Friggi didn't play well this weekend. Like against Eastern, they didn't even need her. They only played her for about 20 minutes. They really took some minutes off of her. To me, she's going to be the MVP of the league if they continue to roll. And statistics, throw them out the window, doesn't matter. She's not going to be one of the top 5 leading scorers. They're just so balanced. She's going to be the MVP.
That's it.
Montana's defense, their defensive strategy, a lot of the principles remain the same. But their strategy has shifted toward not giving any extra attention at all.
Brandon Casey joining us, the offensive lineman from Sandpoint, Idaho, will be coming to the University of Montana to play football for the Grizzlies.
I love Missoula. I have all the Big Sky schools. Montana was obviously my favorite.
I don't want to throw anybody under the bus.
Shout out, your diggers, good for you.
Basically don't care.
If you'd like to give me a facial, I would take that.
Toughen up.
That's it.
Disappears from all of our lives forever.
Wonderful.
I don't think that you can really get more embarrassed than Montana did in 2013 by Syracuse.
Yeah. Who cares?
To get ready for the NCAA tournament, you have to play at a neutral site tournament.
It's just not going to happen, and maybe it gets weird on a road trip.
All the time. I live outside my own mind.
Nothing.
There you go again, channeling your inner Craig Johnson.
Jarek Harding, though, is everybody knows that it's going to him best scorer in the Big Sky Conference, period.
I thought he played an okay game.
Is there anybody else who's got this many freshmen going for him? I don't think so.
Discipline is one of the number one tenets of their entire program.
I'm going to say something that's going to make a lot of people in Western Montana, who follow this stuff, mad at me, and that's okay.
It's such great American history. It's so good.
Like, I don't know that anybody finds Snoop Dogg shocking anymore. I mean, he's doing shows with Martha Stewart. You know what I'm saying?
I gave my 6th grade girlfriend a card and flowers.
There's no way that's going to go that well.
And she said no.
She's horrified by what's transpiring in this very moment.
I can't wait to just move on with my life.
I've never seen it before in a body like his.
Just get me out of here. I cannot wait to leave.
We still don't know what was going on. What a deal that is. Indeed, Ma. Excellent work. Love the 2-minute match.
Thanks for the laughs, Graf. Needed it.
Coulter, last couple minutes here of the week. We should just briefly scour over the NBA, should we not? NBA All-Star Weekend is in Chicago. Again, the NBA All-Star Game, Sunday night, right here on ESPN Radio. All-Star Saturday night, all the dunk contests, the three-point contests, all that on Saturday right here. And then the Rising Stars Challenge coming up in an hour from now at 7 o'clock here on ESPN Radio. Damian Lillard injured his